Okay, for this recording, I'm going to be showing you how to calculate out the cost of gas for a given road trip. For this example, we're going to be traveling between Mount Timpanagos in Utah and traveling to John Wayne Airport in Southern California, just outside of the Long Beach area, not Long Beach area, the Santa Ana area in Southern California. So there are three pieces of information that I need in order to calculate out the cost of this trip. This is a long trip going from Utah to Southern California. And so this will have a little bit higher cost than some of the shorter trips that if you were, say, just going from Big Bear to the beach or just up the coast and that sort of thing. So yours will depend on these sorts of things. But the three pieces of information are the distance traveled. That's usually just a simple Google search, Google Maps search to figure out the exact distance given a certain path, right? I need to know the fuel efficiency of the car that I'm driving. And that, again, is just a Google search away, particularly if you know the make and model of your car. Just Google search that. MPG will be the first things that pops up. It'll typically give you two numbers, city and highway miles per gallon. Pick a number in between, and we'll work with that. And then the price per gallon of gas. This will be the most variant of these three things that we need to find. This really depends on where you're located. I'm okay with you just looking up an average cost of gas given a specific area, whether that be Southern California or a different state, maybe it's a different country, whatever it might be. Okay, but I need these three pieces of information. All right, so based on our example, we found the following information. We found out that the distance between Mount Timpanagos and John Wayne Airport turned out to be 679 miles. Again, that was just done on Google Maps between the two locations. Sometimes you have to add in the word directions after your Google search, and it will pop up with that information. For the record, again, for the sake of your slides, you would also want to take note of how long it took to get between those two locations. In this case, it was 10 hours and 32 minutes. That would be handy information for your actual project slides. The second piece of information was dependent on the vehicle being driven. In this case, it is a 2020 Honda Odyssey, and it gave me two different sets of miles per gallon, 19 miles per gallon for city, 28 for highway. So we'll go ahead and pick a number on the higher end of that spectrum because it's a long road trip of 25 miles per gallon. A fairly fuel efficient van, if I do say so myself. That it is possible to have far more fuel efficient cars, like say a motorcycle or a hybrid vehicle. And it's also possible to have a lot less fuel efficient cars like diesel trucks or sports cars, Hummers, that sort of thing. Okay, but this will end up mattering for how much gas this ends up burning. And lastly, price per gallon. We went ahead in this case, just looked up the average price of gas in Las Vegas, considering that was kind of the midway point here, and we came up with a Google search of $2.55 per gallon. All right, so we have our three pieces of information. Now we're going to calculate out the actual cost of this road trip, getting from Mount Timpanagos to John Wayne Airport here in Southern California. So this calculation is actually very, very quick. Use the calculator and you'll see what we get. So what I'm going to start with is first figuring out with these two pieces of information, how many gallons of gas I'm actually going to be buying on this trip. So in this case, I'm simply going to take my distance traveled divided by my fuel efficiency. So in this case, I'm going to start with 679 miles, the distance between my two locations, divided by the fuel efficiency, 25 miles per gallon, again, pulled from the Google version of the MPG for this Honda Odyssey. So when I do that, don't feel like you have to do it in your head or anything like that. Just do it on the calculator. Magical tools, these things. Divided by 25, 27.16. This number, what is the significance of this number? This tells me how many gallons of gas that I'll be buying on this road trip. 27 gallons. It's a long road trip. It makes sense that it's quite a bit of gas. Again, it's important to understand that this first calculation was not the price. Okay, this simply tells me how much gas I'm purchasing. Now I'll be multiplying it by my actual price per gallon because this was in gallons. This is the price per gallon. I'm going to take this and I'm going to multiply it by my cost per gallon. Again, I just found a average price of something in the middle of that road trip, $2.55 per gallon based on Las Vegas, which was around the midpoint between Mount Timpanagos in Utah and John Wayne Airport here in Southern California. Multiply these two guys together. So again, I still have that 27.16 for my last calculation. I now multiply it by $2.55. I get 69.258. I obviously don't need that many decimal points for when I'm talking about money, so I only need to go to the hundredths place. This will be $69.26 once it's rounded. Now, obviously, on this actual road trip, had this been happening, there are lots of variables here depending on like traffic. Maybe I had to like divert and go off road for a minute to like get some food or use the restroom, all that kind of stuff. So this is obviously going to be an approximation, but this is a good starting point. And it's essential here to understand that it's going to cost me this much money to drive between those two locations. And especially if I'm driving back or continuing the road trip, I need to add the stuff up, because if I didn't take this into account, that's a rough thing to lose out on $70 on my vacation. That might be useful for something else if I didn't keep track of it. Anyway, I'll go ahead and stop the recording there.